Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I will give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interests, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Shannon Whittington. She is an LGBTQ plus nurse who was outed at work, and she's now working to make healthcare more inclusive. That's all I wanted to share about Shannon because she's got more to tell to her story and what she's got going on. So thank you so much, Shannon, for being here today. Why don't you tell the audience more about you and what you've got going on and what you're passionate about?
Thanks, Sarah, for having me here today. I'm excited to be on your podcast. My mission in life is to transform how healthcare is delivered to folks within the LGBTQ plus community, me being one of them. I'm a lesbian. And I also want to transform how organizations embrace us with workplace inclusion education. Any way that I can do that is my mission in life. So I feel like a one-woman show trying to change the world.
Yes. Well, and it is so important, to be inclusive at work, to have people be able to be their authentic selves. So would you mind sharing a little bit kind of about, your identity and what, happened at work that got you on this crusade of wanting to make sure people find inclusion wherever they are?
Well, I worked at a couple of hospitals in different states. Currently live in New York, but I'm sure by now your listeners can tell she's country because she's from Tennessee. And I'd hid in all those workplaces, but nearly 50% of us hide for various reasons. And the company I was working at when I moved to New York, I was hiding there also. It just never came up to come out, so to speak. My mom says if it comes up, it's going to come out. So, and I was fine with that. There was a lot of autonomy on that job. So it wasn't really like I was around people every day. I was a home care nurse. So I was just going into different patients' houses. And one weekend, I went into the office to gather supplies for my bag. And this gay guy, just asked in front of everybody, "What are you and your wife doing this weekend?" And I think I turned 3 shades of gray, at that moment. And you could have just heard a pin drop. And I just felt, outed, right? It just the whole thing, scared. I felt like my heart stopped beating. And no one really said anything, but that was the weekend. And by the next week, I knew that the rumor mill was busy. And so people started treating me differently. And not everybody, but a few people. And I'd had a secretary that I worked with for years. I was one of her favorite managers. And she came into the office because by this time I'd become a manager. And she said, "Hey, I heard you're that away." You know how they do their hand, shake it back and forth, right? And I said, "Are you asking me if I'm gay?" She said, "Yeah, I heard you was that way." And I said, "Well, yeah, Lucy, I am." And she said, "I can't get with that. I don't believe in that." And I said, "Okay, what am I going to do? I try to change her belief system?" So a week or so passed, and she actually talked to another colleague that I'm actually friends with. And she told her, "Yeah, I just can't believe she's, that way." And my colleague said, "Well, has she ever come on to you or did anything inappropriately with you?" And Lucy was like, "No." "She ever said anything inappropriate?" "No." "She ever touched you in any kind of way, made any type of jokes or sexual innuendos to you?" And Lucy was like, "Well, no." She's like, "So she's one of your favorite managers. Like, she just happens to be gay." And I guess that sunk in with Lucy. Lucy was a senior citizen, about to retire. And she came into my office the next week. She said, "Shannon, I really like you." and I just figure I can't not like you just because of that part of you, and she's like, "You're like one of my favorites." And I said, "Well, Lucy, I'm still the same. I just happen to be gay." And that was a growing moment for her. We got up, we hugged, and she was fine after that. But it, it was, once I was outed, it became easier to be out. But when I was living in other states, it just wasn't easy at all. I just had so much shame around it because I grew up in the Bible Belt.
So you had this good moment with Lucy, you had an ally, and your friend kind of saying like, Shannon's still Shannon. There was something else about her. So what has it then been like with other coworkers? Like, have you had similar sort of experiences now that, you are more comfortably able to be out? Um, have other people kind of reacted in ways that are different, or have you found more inclusion?
I think I've been really lucky. You know, um, I can't necessarily say it's because I live in New York and people are more open minded, because I really don't believe that to be the truth. Because the thing about down south, if people don't like something, they're just gonna tell you, "I don't like the gays." Well, how do we get that name anyway? Because we don't call people the straights, but they'll just say, "I don't." But in New York, they won't come out and say it. Generally speaking, so I just say a few instances of being treated differently. But overall, no problem at all. Like, I think about my best friend at work who's straight with 5 children. Before COVID, we ate lunch together every single day and with the door closed, and I never thought about, oh, that could start a rumor, you know. And I don't think she ever thought about, oh, that could start a rumor. I don't even think it ever crossed her mind. But those are some of the things that we do think about, because whether it's true or not, if someone says you're gay, trans, or whatever, whether it's true or not, it can't be undone. Like, once you come out, you can't go back in. you know, you're just going to be out, period. So then it was a matter of, am I out on social media? Because we're talking about a broader audience, right? And I never planned that either, Sarah. I can tell you that. I never planned that either. I was just perusing on LinkedIn, putting my little post up and stuff. And I decided I wanted to be a speaker. So I was posting things about leadership. And one day I posted something that alluded to LGBT, because no one was really talking about it. Like, this was like 4 years ago. Or it wasn't showing up on my feed. Let me just say that. And that post got more engagement than any post. And I was like, wait a second. This is a missing link here on LinkedIn. And I just started posting LGBT content. Next thing you know, like, my following starts to grow. I start getting asked to speak. Of course, I get some shady stuff in my comments sometimes. That's going to happen. On all my platforms, I get that. How did this cringe show up on my feed is probably like the best line I've read so far. Or I'll have, here's your LGBT tip of the day, and somebody posted, here's my tip, don't give one. so now I'm just out everywhere. So people who thought they knew or suspected, or I'm just out. And if you'd have told me that that's something I would have done, or this is something I would be doing now on the LGBT platform, I would have said, no way. I'm too private for that.
So being out in social media and work definitely sounds like a shock to you, but here you are. Um, so at any point previously before this incident at work, did you like consider coming out like in smaller circles or in certain instances, or was it always kind of only the people who have to know will know?
It was kind of a combination. It's mostly the small circle, and I did, once I was outed, my boss did treat me differently, I have to say. It was obvious. It was very, very obvious. And I was like, wow, I went from being her favorite to, not being her favorite. And then now I'm like the gay spokesperson. Anything that is remotely gay, they run it by me. Does this sound right? Or what do you think about this, Shannon? It's like I'm the expert now, but just people who had to know, same thing in my family, just people who had to know. Because growing up in the church, I just didn't think I would be accepted by my family. And I had to accept myself. That took a long time. Like, I just had so much shame around it, pray the gay away, but it didn't go anywhere. And, now I'm married to a wonderful woman, and life is beautiful, and I wouldn't be anything else now. But at that time, oh my gosh, it was scary.
And did you find acceptance in your family once you accepted it within yourself and did start to come out to people?
I did. I am incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky. I have a sister who, lives far away, don't really talk to that much. And I sent my mom a bunch of books because my book came out, right? And I sent her like 10 books. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to save one for your sister." And I just said, "Oh, okay." But inside, my heart was like, was she going to, because she's so religious, right? And I was like, oh man, I don't know how that's going to go. I was very nervous about that. This just happened recently.
Mhm.
I mean, just think about it, right? Just recently. And so a few months passed, and she said, "Hey, your sister came down. She came down for, such and such." And I gave her the book. She said, "I had to fill her out first because I didn't know how she stood on these things." And I was like, "Oh, mother." And so I'm glad it's you doing that. And she said, "You know what she said?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad to get a book like this because I work with some of these people. This is going to help me to know and understand them better." And I couldn't believe it. I was so happy to hear that response. But it's so funny because the people you think won't have a problem do, and the people you think will have a problem won't. I mean, you just don't know.
I mean, it's definitely something where you can't expect, like, you can't predict people's responses. And you know how you felt for so long with shame. But to hear, that your sister is like, I work with people in the LGBTQ plus community. Like, I want to be able to understand more and not go to that jump of defensiveness. So what is your book titled, and what is it, like your personal story, or is it also kind of more of like a learning educational book?
Well, it's entitled LGBTQ plus ABCs for Grownups. And it's kind of like a 101, LGBT 101, kind of like that series for dummies, right? But I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that in the title. And it just goes over the basics. LGBTQIA2SP. What does that mean? What are all these flags? What's the thing with pronouns? What does being transgender mean? How can you be an ally? And so it's for people within the community that they can give to a family member who feels like they're the spokesperson for all gay people, or for a colleague who, you've heard say some things and you're like, I don't know about that. Or just regular people who have family member, friends, colleagues. allies, it's really just very, very basic. One of the reviews I got on Amazon said, and it's also a very short read, by the way. So it's kind of like a children's book in a way because it's illustrated. It's really cute. One of the reviews I got said, very, very basic, good information, but very basic and things that I think most people know. And I thought, yeah, if only most people knew this, I wouldn't have to write a book like this, because now what I find is that people don't want to read an encyclopedia about it. They just want to know the basic stuff to get them through a conversation so they don't offend people. That's what I find, you know?
And so are you thinking about kind of writing a level 2 book per se that, kind of goes that step further for people who know, like already knew the basics and are like, but I want to know more and understand more?
Yeah. So the next one is going to be LGBTQ plus patient-centered care for healthcare providers. And it'll be a short read too, because again, nobody's reading encyclopedias. So I watch, which I don't think they are. So yeah, and then I'll probably write another one on the surgeries because I have a subspecialty in transgender, non-binary, gender affirmation surgeries. I teach nurses how to take care of these patients with their new body parts when they come home. So that has a lot of intrigue for a lot of people, a lot of interest. So something about I've got 6 books in my head. I've already started on the 3rd one. So yeah, once I started, I was like, oh boy, it's on now. This is going to be like an anthology.
Well, and so then, you kind of mentioned how you're a little bit of, a spokesperson at work, is this okay? Like, was, checking in when it comes to, say, certain terms or whatever it may be. And you're, of course, expanding on, furthering education of people, especially in healthcare. So what is it like kind of being that knowledge base? And do you ever find yourself being like, well, I need to like kind of do my research and connect with people who say it more directly aligns with like what they're going through?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started this work, I recognized my knowledge deficit right away. And I went back and got my master's and I did my practicum at CTMS, which is the Center for Transgender Medicine and Surgery, to learn as much as possible. Because if I was going to be developing a program around this, then I needed to learn. And then developed the program. The program became very successful. It's 7 years running now. We've gotten over $4 million in funding. But I still recognized I had more knowledge deficits. So I went back and got my doctorate. And last April, pretty recently. I don't ever want to do that again, but I'm glad I did it. But I still recognize my own knowledge deficits. I mean, it's a constant learning for me. The language is fluid, is linguistically fluid. It changes. Like when we first started, I said I'm a lesbian. I used to think that was a bad word. It felt like a bad word to me. And then I get an intern. The first thing she says is I'm lesbian. And I'm asking my social worker, oh, we can say that now. She's like, of course. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, you don't like the word. I said, well, I got to like it now if it's in, you know? So I think that's what you do when you realize that you don't know something. I was speaking to a client today, and it's a huge organization, and they're all over the country, and they're deep in it, and I felt like, well, gosh, I think I could learn from them, what they're teaching. But a lot of companies I work with, they're just dipping into the kiddie pool with this information. Kudos to them, though, because this is a start. But I have to dip into the kiddie pool. I can't go on the 9 feet yet because they're not ready.
Of course. And so, what is the climate like as things are changing in healthcare? Is there more inclusivity, say, for patients or for coworkers?
I'm optimistic and hopeful. The more I get invited, the more I realize that it's changing. But before, when I first started this work, it was just rejection after rejection. nobody was interested. And even the research shows like the average healthcare provider, nurse particular, gets about 2 hours of education in this area. Every semester I get a nursing student from Ivy League to no league. And I ask them, hey, you had any training in this? And 9 times out of 10, they say no. So I'm still waiting to meet that nurse who got the 2.2 hours, unless that nurse tells me, oh, I did an elective. So, but now I'm starting to be invited. Like I spoke at Columbia University. I just got a text before we signed on here today. A hospital in Connecticut wants me to come and speak. I just left Connecticut like last month. So I think it's people are realizing, in the healthcare industry that, I mean, if you think about it, we're 20 million strong, right? It's probably even more than that because so many of us hide, right? Especially trans folks, right? Many of them are stealth. So we're next to you. We're driving the Uber, we're serving your burgers, we're checking you in the hotel, we're flying your planes. I always say we're like the nooks and crannies in the Eggo waffle. The syrup just goes down and all those nooks and crannies. English muffin, English muffin. And I'm like, that's how gay people are. We're like the nooks and crannies. We're in communities. We're in your churches. What did Celia say on your show? She said, I'm Christian. So am I. Like, that surprises people. Yes, I have a belief system. I grew up in the church. Just being gay doesn't mean that I'm no longer a believer. And I've gone to church since being out, and guess what? It didn't fall in on me.
And do you find acceptance in your church? Like, was it hard to find a church where you could be out and comfortable, or was it relatively easier nowadays?
I don't think it's easier nowadays. I mean, there's a gay church here in New York. I don't go to it, but I grew up in the church, and stuck with that for a really long time. Now I'll go if I have to sing or something like that, but I'm not like there every Sunday, you know, because, you know, when I used to go, that would come up sometimes. And then there I would be feeling that shame again. And I don't need that. I can feel shame on my own. Tyler Perry's, play says I can do bad by myself. Well, I can feel shame by myself. I don't need you to, add on to it. It takes a lot to accept who you are, to accept being different in a straight world, right? Well, everyone is, I'm very femme. I know the listeners can't see me, but I'm very femme. I have a hard time convincing people I was gay when I was younger and trying to date. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? I'm like, gay can look a lot of different ways, you know?
So do you still at times find yourself feeling shame around your identity?
Not anymore, but didn't start to feel really comfortable. Like I see these young kids now who know who they are, 9 years old, 15, 16, 17. Lord have mercy, I'm like probably the latest bloomer you've ever talked to on your show. Like really feel like I didn't come out till I was in my mid 30s because I didn't know, you know. I just knew it didn't feel right to be with guys. I know what it was. I was like, you know what? I don't like this. So I don't think I really started to feel comfortable until my late 30s, early 40s, and not comfortable enough to be on social media and on this platform only within the last 4 or 5 years. So it's a process. It really is. And like, we don't fly the pride flag here in our house. Like, we don't have it on our car. And I walk around the neighborhood and some houses have it in the front lawn. We don't, we won't. I just still don't think. Here's a prime example. Like, I speak all over, right? And I film the stuff because I put it on social media. I never post where I am until I've headed on the plane back to where I live. Because I don't want to get jumped in the elevator. Because we can say, oh, it's not that bad. But with all the anti-trans LGBT bills, many of which are being passed, over 400 something, Those aren't aliens making up those bills. Those are people who have very strong views. I don't want to run into one of them in the elevator. Yeah.
And that's probably good safety for anyone about
Yeah.
posting your location
Oh,
online.
oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't ever post, oh, I'm headed down to Florida now. I'm speaking at the neonatal conference for, this. No, 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 no. That goes after. Yeah.
And so then, you've got this platform now, you are speaking, you are sharing with other people. And so your life is a little bit more public, but also still private. So how do you kind of balance that? And where does, kind of life with a happy spouse, like where does that fall into being this public yet private person?
It's very interesting because my wife is very private. And I guess last summer, the local paper, did a story on the trainings that I do around gender affirmation surgeries. And they came here to the house and interviewed me and everything, took pictures and stuff. A small little community newspaper. They put me on the front page. I wasn't expecting that. So my wife was like, "That's not safe." Like, I can't believe. I said, I didn't think they were going to put me on the front page. I said, babe, nobody reads that paper. Don't worry about it. Oh my God, I walked my dog the next day. I saw you in the paper. I saw you in the paper. I saw you in the paper. I got kind of nervous, because my wife can't be out where she works. And, I kind of want to move a little bit further up. She's like, oh no, we can't, babe. Because she kept saying she didn't like the house. She didn't like this house. She didn't like that house. And I was like, you can't not like all the houses I'm showing you. Like, come on. And then she finally said, well, we can't go up there. I'm like, well, why not? I might run into a coworker. I'm like, well, so what? She's like, I'll be outed. Not good. Like, can you believe that? This day and age, Sarah, like not being able to move to a certain area because you don't want to be outed. So still a big part of our life is private. I don't hold her hands in public. I don't hold her hand in the restaurant. None of that. I I I just don't. It's not safe in my opinion.
And is that like easy to kind of balance that sort of different sort of you had a lot of that hiding, not
Mhm.
being able to be out, and you still have kind of part of that, like when you're out in public with your wife, whereas like if you're by yourself and talking or speaking or whatever it may be, like is that like are you kind of having to split that mentality or is that like you're kind of just you understand where your wife is, so therefore it's okay?
I understand where she is, but it's not okay. It's not okay. I would prefer that wasn't the case, but you know, we have to be safe.
And is there, any point do you see on the horizon that she'd be able to come out at work? Or is it
No,
just kind of like
no way. No, 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 no.
and so then you're, trying to help with inclusivity at work, our work aside, what are you like reaching out to places proactively or places reaching out to you? Like, how are you kind of making those connections? Because like that one Amazon review said, like, oh, people already know this, but people don't.
Hmm. Most of the engagements, invitations I get are on LinkedIn, but I have started to do outreach recently and just in the last few weeks. But pretty much everything comes on LinkedIn or word of mouth. You know, um, yeah.
And so then are you still balancing like being a nurse alongside all of your speaking and engagement? How is that like your day to day? with a lot going on and different passions?
Oh, it's a lot going on. Like, I feel very lucky because I run a program that's just called a gender affirmation program. And I basically teach the nurses. And so I answer calls when they're with the patient or they're scared about something or something's bleeding, something fell out, something like that. And I enjoy that work immensely. So it aligns with my passion with my own consulting company. So I really feel like the luckiest girl in the world when it comes to that. But it really took a long time to get to that point. And I feel like I'm able to balance it pretty good. I showed up on time tonight, which isn't always the case.
And are you seeing more sort of people like you in the workplace, that there is someone you can reach out to in those situations of making sure people feel comfortable with their health care? Like, are there always places for people to reach out to, or is it kind of like you're in this really good workspace that even exists?
Well, we have an excellent, well, we have like ERGs, right, for pride and trans and stuff like that. So people know who they can reach out to, and be it confidential or whatever, and they feel comfortable enough. And I always tell them, you can text me, you can email me, it can be anonymous. I don't out anyone. Like, I've had so many people on LinkedIn tell me they're trans or they're gay and what they would like to be called, or they'll say something like, I could tell you something about me that you wouldn't believe. And then I know where the conversation's going. But I don't out anyone. I just want them to feel like I am a safe space for them to talk. The nurses will call and say, my 4-year-old is telling me that they are a boy, but my kid was born a girl. What should I do? They don't want to wear shirts. They want to wear swim trunks, and that's it. Things like that.
And so how do you kind of navigate those conversations and give advice, especially with, people being more confident about their identities at younger ages, or starting to vocalize it if, the parents or an older generation just doesn't understand?
Yeah, I get a lot of parents, and that's not my area of expertise. Mine is in adult care, right? But I know what I would have wanted from my parents. And the first thing I tell them is love your kid. I always start with that. Love your kid, support your kid. If your kid is being bullied at school or on the playground or wherever, if they know they can come home to a supportive parent, it makes all the difference in the world. But a lot of those kids don't have that, because when you think about our homeless youth in this country, nearly 50% of them fall within the LGBTQ community. Nearly 50%. That's a lot. So they get tossed out. I don't know if you know about Trans Santa. Do you know about Trans Santa on
I do
IG?
not.
It's called Trans Santa. This is a platform for trans kids to post their wish list for Christmas. And they write letters to a trans Santa. And you just go on there and see whatever, resonates with you, and you buy the gift or whatever. And I've been doing it for 2 years. This will be my 3rd year. And the letters that I read on there are just, kids being thrown out because they're trans, just horrible. And now we're having this sort of like a migration of trans kids and their families leaving certain states because affirming care has been banned. People are uprooting families and everything, and they're coming here to New York for care. Like, this is an expensive place to live, you know? And imagine having a kid and they can't get affirming care, and you have to uproot your entire life and move to another state. That's what's happening.
And is that something that like kind of also brought you to New York because you were originally from, the South, or
Mhm.
Was that just kind of a happenstance?
I came up here when I was in high school, and I always knew that because I grew up in such a small town, 183,000 people. That's not small for some folks, but for me, that's a small town. And I knew I just wanted to do more exciting things. And so I didn't even know I was gay at the time. So I moved to Atlanta. I lived there for a couple of years, and then I came up here, and this was it for me. I mean, like, this was where I wanted to be. Now, having been here like all these years, I'm ready to go. You know, I've had enough of New York City, trust me. But everything that excited me about it then, now I'm not excited about. I miss I miss the horizontal living, because everything's vertical here. So, but fortunately I live in like a kind of like a little suburb thing. I got a little yard and stuff, so it's not too bad.
Where would you ideally like to end up if not New York City?
I know, like that's what we struggle with. Like, where is the utopia? Like, I don't, definitely a gay friendly town. I know can't find a totally gay friendly state, and I don't know where because I don't want to be around in the cold so much, you know. So if you find that out, let me know. All right. Hey Shannon, I think you should move to X. Okay. You can't be the West Coast because I don't want to get the earthquakes, and I want to avoid the winter. So I'm limiting my options here.
Just a little bit. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely balancing climate versus city versus rural versus making sure you just feel comfortable to be able to be you.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So, what is it like, being this spokesperson, being able to share your story and being able to help educate others? Like, how is that for you, knowing where you grew up and what you've experienced?
Sometimes I can't believe that I'm doing what I do. Like, I'm a country girl who grew up on a farm with cows, chickens, and hogs. Like, you can't get, I had a pet pig. I mean, you just can't get much more country than that, right? And to, be flying all over the country doing this and writing books and getting all kind of awards and being invited here and there and being an inspiration to people, and they come up to me afterwards crying, telling me about how this moved them or their kid, their daughter. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very rewarding, and I'm happy to help. I feel like if I can touch one person, I feel like I've made a difference, and I feel an obligation to spread this information because I don't feel like I would have been giving this desire if it wasn't something that was needed. I feel, you know, spiritually led to do this work. I feel like this is what God wants me to do. And God is using me as a mouthpiece that, love is love. And we're all different, but we're really all the same because we're all human.
Hey, it sounds like, you've kind of come a long way from childhood and you're, predominantly in a good place. Now, before I start to wrap things up today, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners?
Well, I'd like to thank the listeners for listening. I'd like to thank you for having me here today. And if your listeners feel like I could add value to their organization, they can certainly reach out to me, and I'd be happy to have a conversation around that.
Hey, I'll definitely be making sure to leave some of your contact information so people can get in touch with you if they're interested. Now, at the end of all my episodes, I do ask all of my guests a random question that doesn't have to do with anything that we've been talking about.
I'm nervous about this because we don't know what the question is.
Well, and I can always cut out a pause if you can't think of something immediately. That is okay.
Okay.
My question for you today is, what is the perfect age?
The age that you are right now.
And why would you say that that is the perfect age?
Because it's something that you can't control. So you might as well embrace what you are and where you are. And I feel like I'm the perfect age right now.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. So, of course, if you would like to connect with Shannon, I will be leaving her website and LinkedIn in the description. So those are the best ways to connect with her. And of course, they connect to her other social media as well. I'll also be leaving a link to her book. As she mentioned, it's a short read. So if you're looking for some of that basic ABCs, go check out her book. It will be linked directly in the description. And of course, if you would like to connect with the podcast, our website is in the description. As always, it brings you to our social media. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. It also brings you to all of our past episodes, social media, resources, all of those good things. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast and share your story, my email is in the description. That's always the best way to reach out to me. And if you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, that support is always appreciated, and there is a link to do that as well. So thank you so much, Shannon, for spending time with me today, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you.